Yeah, for a livestock producer, extension of grazing is one of the very best ways that we can significantly reduce input cost. Anything that we can do to extend our grazing season and provide more and more nutritious forage biomass production is going to help us do that. And we all know that those live animals out there grazing and harvesting themselves is far cheaper than us cranking a tractor or a feed truck and going out there every day to feed those cattle. So anything that we can do to reduce the time period each year that we have to physically and mechanically be feeding cattle, we're going to be far better off.
On grazing the cover crops on the full seasons, one particular year we got to graze it 4 times. You could put them in there, graze it off in a 3 or 4 day period, take them out a month and come back and graze them off again. And I mean, it's like, wow, this is super,
This year we have over 6 months of hay left over, which is a big change. Most years before we were doing a lot of grazing of cover crops, we'd go through our entire hay supply and we'd have maybe a handful of bales left over going into the next hay season. And so for us, being on river bottom ground, sometimes we'll lose a pasture due to flooding. And so that made me really nervous. Running out of hay at the wrong time can be really bad. I'm not worried about that anymore because I have so much hay, we're gonna have to start selling it, or we're gonna have to reduce our hay acres because of all the cover crops, since we're not feeding that much anymore.
This cover crop is very high in nutrition. The rye or any of these species are dairy quality feed when we're out here grazing them, and it's so good a feed that you have to have that dry matter mix in it so they can balance their diet. So I think body condition score, they're very good. They're full all the time. This type of grazing works really well.
If we weren't using cover crops to calve on, we'd still be calving on this field, but it would just be soybean stubble. I refuse to calve in mud if I don't have to. And so on here, I've got enough ground, the cows will spread out just like they were on permanent pasture, but I'm able to get them in a controlled area and they're close to the house. I can bring them up if we have any calving issues, and they just work really well. And with it nice, wide, and open like this, I can see a calf from my house. And so I can easily go out and find the animals rather than like in a tall, well-maintained pasture. It's a lot of work to find calves, especially newborns, because they hide them. But out here, it's hard to hide. So I would never go back to running cattle on just stubble or just stalks. If I could have cover crops on every acre and graze every acre, I would do that.
Even though you always look at that very first year of what that bottom line is, it's hard to realize that you may have benefits for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 8 years down the road from what you chose to do this year. And I think if you want to grow cover crops, the last thing you should do is look at your bottom line that first year. Just forget about it. It's immaterial. It's no different than if you're married, you never went on the first date and married your wife in that first date. I mean, you gotta do the work to receive the rewards.